Welcome back to Bay Sunday. Please welcome Michael Gene Sullivan from the San Francisco Mime Troupe. All right, so there's a new show called Schooled, right? And it's not the mime that most people think about.
Yeah, people always think mime. It's like, oh, you're wearing leotards and trapped in a glass box and pulling a rope against something, walking against the wind. Mime, the traditional definition of mime, you can talk, you can sing, you can dance, you can do all of this stuff. Silent mime is just a piece of it. Right. And we don't do any of that. We have a big exaggerated style when we're doing our shows, because most of our shows are done free outdoors in the parks for people, and you have thousands of people come out to see us.
Right. I know that the San Francisco Mime Troupe has been around for a long time. How long has mime been around?
Oh, mime, ancient Greece. The idea basically is in ancient Greece, they would say, oh, you're doing a mimic of somebody because you want to make sure the audience knows you're being Pericles, but you can't call the character Pericles because you might just get killed. So instead, you exaggerate all the qualities of the person you're satirizing. Mm-hmm. And so it's a way to kind of do political stuff with a little more safety. We don't use the safety, we just still keep the name.
And how long has this troupe been around?
We've been around for 57 years. We're one of the oldest theater companies in the United States.
And during those years, you've actually got a lot of recognition, including a Tony Award back in when?
87, we got a Tony Award for Outstanding Regional Theater. We've toured around the world. We've gotten Off-Broadway Awards, Obie Awards for touring to New York. We've been to Europe and Southeast Asia and Central America, always doing shows that are about political issues that are important to the people that are there or reflecting American policy in some way that you probably don't see in regular news.
You mentioned some of your shows get political. Mm-hmm. Are we going to see both sides equally represented, or is this more liberal, conservative?
Well, liberal is far too weak a word for the San Francisco Mime Troupe. What we focus on is what is the social and economic impact on the working class. Most Americans are in the working class. And we create the vast amount of wealth, and we use the vast amount of resources of this country, but we don't have the vast amount of power. It is concentrated in a very small group. So the Mime Troupe wants to always remind the audience, you are the United States. You know, you as the workers who build the roads, who go to the schools, who work in the hospitals, you are the country. And that we have to always focus on taking it back and reinterpreting the stories we hear from the major corporate media in a way that reflects what our needs and wants are.
Well, you guys are doing some great work. Let's take a look at some of the things that you guys have been working on.
Frozen!
Mr. Washington, you have the right to remain silent.
Haywood, the name not Washington is Haywood. Malcolm Haywood.
I wrote Freedom Land for a lot of reasons. One is I could see what was going on in the country and the history of this country when it comes to law and order and race and class. My wife and I, we have a son, and I have to worry every time he leaves the house. Not because of criminals or gangsters or hoods on the street. I got to worry about the cops. I got to worry he's going to be just taken in for no reason just because of the color of his skin.
So in this scene, we see you are in front of the camera, but in a new role, you're doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, this time I'm writing and directing the show, which I do periodically. Right. You know, one of the great things about the Mime Troupe is we don't have, like most theater companies have, an artistic director. Theater is sometimes called the last absolute dictatorship on the planet because of the artistic director. The Mime Troupe has a collective. We, as a group of artists, get together and decide, okay, well, who's the most experienced writer, who's going to direct this year, who's going to design the show, and then we give that person full power to do it. The collective doesn't always step in and say, no, do it this way. We designate someone in the company who we have confidence in and give that person the job and trust them to do it.
And tell us a little bit more about what we just saw in that last clip. Obviously, guns drawn.
Right, that was Freedom Land was about basically the awkward relationship between black men and the police in this country, about the institutionalized racism in the story. It's a story of a grandfather who's trying to keep his grandson safe. How do you keep him from being abused by a system? And at the same time, we also had, we talked about the police and how the police are trained to be afraid of the population. Even if they want to do the right thing, they're trained and told that the population is your enemy. You're always about to get killed. And so they react that way. And so it is, again, up to all of us to kind of say, this isn't the way we want our country run. And we have to demand justice constantly, otherwise you'll never get it.
Right, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more material for next year, too, considering what has been happening recently.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like with Schooled, we're the new show that's coming out. We're dealing with things on a couple of different levels. One has to do with the privatization and corporatization of public wealth, like our schools. These are things that we built up. What does it mean to go to school? And with the election, everything coming up, what are we going to do to make our country great again?
Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. For more information about the San Francisco Mime Troupe, you can log on to sfmt.org. That's sfmt.org. And that's it for this week. We'll be back with more Bay Sunday next week. Have a great week.